I never thought a simple curiosity could turn my life upside down. It all started on a quiet Saturday afternoon when my parents were out running errands and my sister was at a friend's birthday party. I was alone in the house, and boredom had begun to gnaw at me. I wandered into my sister's room, mostly out of habit. I'd done it countless times before, just to tease her or borrow something small. But that day, something different caught my eye. Her school uniform was neatly folded on her chair, the crisp plaid skirt paired with the white blouse I had seen her wear every day. I don't know why, but the thought of trying it on popped into my head. It wasn't anything sexual, at least not in the way people might think. I think I was just drawn to the sensation of slipping into something entirely different, something forbidden and secret. At first, I hesitated. My heart raced as I imagined the consequences. If anyone found out, Mom would probably explode, and Dad would be confused and disappointed. But curiosity, once sparked, can be relentless. Slowly, I unbuttoned her blouse, the fabric soft and slightly perfumed with the faint scent of her laundry detergent. My hands shook, and I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. When I finally pulled the skirt over my legs and adjusted the blouse, I was startled at how natural it felt. The plaid seemed to wrap around me like a uniform meant for me, not her. I looked into the mirror, expecting to see a distorted reflection, but what I saw was different. I didn't look like my usual self, but I didn't look wrong either. It was like I had stepped into a new identity, one that was lighter, softer, and somehow freeing. I twirled in front of the mirror, marveling at how the skirt swished around my knees. I could almost hear my sister laughing if she walked in and saw me like this, but there was no one around, only me and my reflection. For the first time, I noticed the subtle curve of my face in the mirror, how my features seemed to shift slightly with the outfit. It was unsettling and thrilling all at once. I lost track of time. The thrill of being caught in something forbidden made me reckless. I wandered around the house, testing how I moved, how I looked in different lights. I even tried putting on her socks, the ones that went just above the knee, and they made the experience feel even more complete. I could almost hear my own thoughts whispering, "No one can know this is your secret." Then, in a moment that will haunt me forever, I heard the front door open. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze mid-step, my hands gripping the skirt as if it could somehow shield me. Mom's voice called out cheerfully, unaware of the storm waiting in the hallway. I panicked. I wanted to hide, to vanish, but I was too exposed. She appeared at the doorway, her eyes widening almost instantly at the sight before her. I expected anger, screaming, maybe punishment, but what I saw instead was shock. Pure, undeniable shock. She didn't yell at me. She didn't immediately scold me. She just stood there, her arms crossed, eyes scanning me from head to toe. And then, slowly, she said my name. It wasn't harsh, but it carried a weight that made me shiver. What are you wearing?" I tried to speak, to explain, but words tangled in my throat. The confession I hadn't even planned to make seemed impossible now. My mind raced, trying to come up with some excuse, but nothing felt believable. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure she could hear it. Mom sighed, a long, heavy sound, and shook her head. I braced myself for anger, for punishment, for embarrassment I didn't think I could survive. But instead, she did something I never expected. She stepped closer, slowly, and her eyes softened, not with approval, but with a kind of understanding that made my chest tighten. "Sit down," she said quietly. "We need to talk." And just like that, I realized this wasn't going to be a simple scolding. This was going to be a reckoning, a turning point I had never anticipated. I had no idea what was about to come, but I knew my life had just shifted in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. I obeyed without a word, my legs stiff, as I sat on the edge of my sister's bed. Mom perched on the chair across from me, her eyes never leaving my reflection in the mirror behind her. For a long moment, silence filled the room, heavy and thick, like a storm waiting to break. I felt exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely alive. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of curiosity, of determination that made me shiver. "I need to understand why. Of all things, you chose to wear this. I swallowed hard. I wanted to say it was just curiosity, just a silly experiment, but it felt like lying. Somehow, admitting the truth felt both terrifying and necessary. I don't know, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to see what it felt like to be like this. Mom's eyebrows furrowed, but her gaze didn't soften or shift to anger. Instead, it carried something heavier, contemplation, as though she were weighing my words carefully. You weren't trying to be your sister, were you? She asked. I hesitated. The answer wasn't simple. Not exactly. I just wanted to feel different, maybe to feel like someone else for a little while. My hands twisted in my lap. It felt right, in a way I can't explain. She leaned back in her chair, the fabric creaking under her weight, and studied me like I was a puzzle she needed to solve. For a moment, I feared she would call me crazy or punish me, but instead, she said, "All right, I think I understand more than you realize." Her words made my chest tighten. Understanding from her? That was unexpected. I had imagined tears, yelling, humiliation, but this was something else entirely. She stood slowly, moving to sit beside me on the bed. I could feel her presence like a weight, grounding and intimidating at the same time. I can't promise I fully understand what this means for you, she said gently, but I can promise you something else. You're safe here. Whatever this is, we can work through it. Together. I blinked, stunned. Work through it? I echoed, my voice small. Mom nodded. Yes. But first, we need to do something important. She paused, then reached toward my hands. You need to see yourself, not just in the clothes, but as yourself. Fully. And we need to be honest about what that feels like. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready for that level of vulnerability. But then I realized that hiding behind excuses or shame wasn't helping me feel anything but more confused. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, letting her guide me toward the mirror. Standing there, facing my reflection, I felt a wave of conflicting emotions. The uniform, the socks, the blouse, it all felt like a mask I couldn't take off, and yet it didn't feel like a mask at all. It felt like possibility. I caught my own gaze in the mirror and noticed details I had never allowed myself to see before. The way my eyes looked softer under the reflection, the subtle angles of my jawline, the gentle curve of my shoulders. Mom's hand rested lightly on my arm. See that? She asked softly. You're still you. Nothing about this takes that away. But you're exploring a side of yourself, and that's okay. Exploration isn't wrong. Her words were a lifeline. They didn't erase my fear, but they gave me courage. Courage to admit to myself that this experience, this secret, daring thing I had tried on, was more than a passing curiosity. It was a part of me, one I hadn't dared to face until now. I looked at her, my heart racing, and realized that for the first time, I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel shame. I felt seen, truly seen. And that realization was terrifying in a beautiful, exhilarating way. Mom smiled faintly, almost as if she could read the storm of thoughts swirling inside me. We'll figure out what this means together, she said, her voice steady, reassuring. But right now, I want you to be honest with yourself. How does it feel? I closed my eyes, letting the words settle. How did it feel?
Free. Terrifying.
Exciting. Confusing.
Right.
All of it all at once. I opened my eyes slowly, met hers, and whispered, "It feels like me," in a way I didn't know I could be. Mom's hand squeezed mine, and for the first time, I believed her. I believed that what I felt wasn't something to hide, wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was a piece of me, one that could exist safely, even if it was complicated, even if it was unexpected. And in that quiet, charged moment, I realized that the path forward wasn't about undoing what I had done. It was about understanding it, exploring it, and maybe even just a little embracing it. After that moment with Mom, the house felt different, almost alive in a way I hadn't noticed before. The usual hum of appliances and distant traffic seemed to fade, replaced by a strange sense of anticipation, like the air itself was waiting to see what would happen next. I stayed in the uniform for hours, hesitant to change, almost afraid to step back into my normal clothes. Each time I glanced in the mirror, I saw myself in a new light, and the reflection was both familiar and alien. Mom didn't push me, didn't lecture or question beyond what we had already discussed. Instead, she seemed to quietly observe, offering gentle comments when I sought them. "That color suits you," she'd say, gesturing to the plaid skirt. Or, "Your hair frames your face nicely like that," when I tried tucking it behind my ears. Her encouragement was subtle but precise, and it sent waves of both relief and embarrassment through me. I was caught somewhere between pride and shame, yet neither emotion fully dominated. By the time evening rolled around, I felt an unfamiliar sort of calm settle over me. But calm, I quickly realized, didn't mean ordinary. It meant understanding that this whole experience was shifting something inside me. My identity, the way I saw myself, the way I felt in my own skin was beginning to change. And for the first time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, that change wasn't bad. The next day, things got even more surreal. Mom had suggested we go shopping, not just for clothes but for understanding. "We're not buying anything extravagant," she had said with a wink, "just things that make you feel comfortable in exploring this side of yourself." At first, panic flared in my chest. Shopping for myself, in anything that hinted at femininity? With Mom? The thought alone made me break into a nervous sweat. But something about her tone, firm but gentle, made it impossible to say no. At the store, I felt like every pair of eyes was on me. I gripped the handles of the shopping basket, trying not to betray the storm of self-consciousness raging inside. But Mom stayed close, her presence like a shield. She would occasionally nudge me toward a skirt or blouse, and with each try-on, I noticed subtle changes in how I carried myself. My posture straightened, my movements softened, my confidence, small and tentative, began to bloom. Back at home, I spent hours experimenting with different outfits, styles, and even hairstyles. Mom watched with an encouraging, patient eye, occasionally offering practical advice, sometimes just observing in silence. "You don't have to do anything you're uncomfortable with," she reminded me often. Yet, her calm presence made it easier to step further, to test the boundaries of who I thought I was. It wasn't always smooth. Some days, I caught glimpses of my reflection and felt like an imposter in my own skin. I questioned why this side of me had been hidden for so long. I wrestled with guilt, with fear, with the lingering whispers of what society might think. But Mom's quiet support acted as a tether, grounding me when those doubts threatened to overwhelm. Over time, I realized that the most profound transformations weren't just physical, they were emotional, psychological. I began noticing how the way I moved, the way I spoke, even the cadence of my laughter subtly shifted. I discovered small joys in these changes, moments of delight in the softness of a fabric, the curve of a hemline, the way certain colors seemed to brighten my expression. These weren't superficial changes. They were glimpses of a self I had never allowed myself to meet. Then came a pivotal moment, one that cemented my understanding that this wasn't a fleeting experiment. I was alone in my room, experimenting with a full outfit, when Mom knocked and entered without waiting for an answer. My heart lurched, expecting reproach or anger, but she didn't flinch at the sight before her. Instead, she smiled, faint but genuine. "You've come a long way," she said softly. "I can see it, not just in the clothes, but in how you carry yourself. Do you feel different?" I paused, looking into the mirror. Different?
Yes.
But more than that, I felt complete in a way I hadn't before. The reflection staring back at me wasn't a mask, wasn't a disguise. It was me. And in that moment, I realized something important. Transformation isn't about changing who you are. It's about discovering who you've always been, buried beneath layers of fear, expectation, and hesitation. "Yeah," I said quietly, almost in disbelief. "I do." Mom reached out, resting her hand on my shoulder. "Then keep exploring," she said, her eyes warm. Safely, of course, but keep exploring. I'll be here. And in that small, quiet affirmation, I felt a weight lift off my chest. I wasn't just caught in a uniform anymore, I was caught in a moment of self-discovery, one that would shape how I saw myself forever. Weeks passed, and the routine of my transformation became a part of daily life. Quiet, private, yet profoundly altering. I found myself more attuned to how I presented myself, how I moved, how I spoke. It wasn't about impressing anyone else. It was about the satisfaction of aligning my inner self with what I allowed the world to see. Mom had been an unwavering presence, sometimes quietly observing, sometimes offering small suggestions, always giving me space to navigate this new identity at my own pace. One afternoon, I was sitting on my bed, trying on a new skirt Mom had picked out, when I caught sight of my reflection in the full-length mirror across the room. I paused and studied myself carefully. The familiar nervousness was there, but layered over it was something else: pride, confidence. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. My shoulders felt lighter, my posture straighter, my movements fluid. I was beginning to inhabit a side of myself I hadn't known existed. Mom entered the room quietly, carrying a small stack of folded blouses. "I think you're ready for a bit more challenge," she said gently, setting the clothes beside me. I looked at her warily. Challenge? What did that mean? "Try mixing and matching," she continued, her eyes scanning my reflection. "See how different combinations make you feel. It's about exploring, experimenting, not perfection." I nodded, heart hammering. The thought of truly experimenting made me both excited and nervous. I picked up a plaid skirt in a lighter shade, paired it with a blouse I'd never considered before, and stepped in front of the mirror. My reflection shocked me. I hardly recognized myself. It wasn't just the clothes, the way I carried myself, the tilt of my head, even the soft expression on my face. It all seemed transformed. "Look at you," Mom said softly, her voice warm. "You're discovering more than you know." Her words hit me in a way I hadn't anticipated. This journey wasn't just about skirts and blouses. It was about identity, about perception, about courage. I realized that every time I put on one of these outfits, I wasn't pretending. I was uncovering, layer by layer, a version of myself that had been hidden, perhaps even from me. That evening, I decided to do something bold. I arranged my hair differently, trying styles I had always seen on my sister but had never dared to replicate. I practiced walking, adjusting my steps, testing subtle gestures, the way I held my hands, the way I tilted my chin. I studied every detail in the mirror, absorbing it all, learning what felt right and what didn't. Mom watched quietly from the doorway, a faint smile on her lips. "It's incredible to see you growing into yourself," she said. "Remember, this is your journey. There's no timeline, no rules, just you." Her words gave me a sense of freedom I hadn't felt before. I realized that transformation wasn't about shocking others or hiding secrets. It was about embracing change on my own terms, about letting curiosity and courage guide me. The more I explored, the more I understood that my identity wasn't fixed. It was fluid, adaptable, capable of evolving in ways I had never imagined. Then came an unexpected moment that shook me more than any mirror ever could. Mom suggested we organize my sister's closet together, just as a casual activity. As we sorted through her uniforms, folded blouses, and neatly hung skirts, I found myself drawn to an outfit I hadn't considered before: a skirt in soft pastel plaid with a matching cardigan. My hands shook as I picked it up, heart racing in anticipation and fear. Mom noticed immediately. "That one's special," she said quietly. "It's not just about clothes. It's about how you feel in them." I swallowed hard, caught in a mix of excitement and nerves. I slipped into the outfit, hesitating only for a moment before looking in the mirror. The reflection that stared back was breathtaking, not in a superficial way, but in a deeply personal one. The soft colors framed my face perfectly. The skirt swished around my knees with every tiny movement, and for the first time, I felt fully, completely, undeniably myself. Mom stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. "Do you see it?" she asked softly. "This is you. Not just the clothes, but the confidence, the presence, the person you're discovering." I nodded, feeling tears prick my eyes. I think I do," I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. In that quiet, shared moment, I understood that my journey wasn't about hiding or pretending. It wasn't about rebellion or curiosity. It was about acceptance, discovery, and growth. I had stepped into a world I hadn't known existed, and instead of fear, I found wonder. Instead of shame, I found pride. And in that instant, I realized that no matter what challenges came next, no matter how confusing or difficult this path might be, I had taken the first crucial step toward embracing all of who I was, both the familiar and the hidden, the expected and the surprising. Days turned into weeks, and the transformation I had begun in secret became a quiet part of my life. The thrill of curiosity had evolved into something far deeper: self-discovery, acceptance, and a newfound confidence I hadn't realized I could possess. The uniform, once a symbol of forbidden exploration, had become a bridge to understanding myself in ways I never thought possible. Mom continued to be my quiet anchor. She never pushed, never forced, but always offered guidance and reassurance. Sometimes we'd experiment together, trying new styles, discussing combinations, or simply observing how different looks made me feel. Other times, she would let me navigate the changes on my own, giving me the space to explore what I liked, what felt natural, and what reflected the person I was becoming. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the window and dust motes danced in the warm glow, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, fully dressed in one of the outfits we had picked out together. The soft pastel plaid skirt, the cardigan, the way my hair fell just right. Everything seemed to align perfectly. I studied myself, taking in the reflection, the posture, the expression, the presence. For the first time, I didn't feel like an imposter, didn't feel like I was hiding behind someone else's clothes. I was me. Mom's voice broke the silence softly. "You've grown so much," she said, standing beside me. "Not just in how you dress, but in how you carry yourself, how you see yourself. That's the real transformation." I smiled, a warm, genuine smile, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of completion, a quiet triumph over fear, doubt, and hesitation. "I feel free," I admitted. "Like I finally understand a part of me I didn't know existed." Mom nodded. "That's the beauty of discovery. You can't force it. You can only allow yourself to explore, to experiment, to feel. And you've done that beautifully." It wasn't just the clothes, the skirts, or the uniform. It was the confidence, the understanding, the willingness to face vulnerability head-on. I had learned to confront fear without shame, to embrace curiosity without guilt, and to find joy in self-expression. From that day forward, I carried this sense of self with me. The uniform, once a symbol of secrecy, became a reminder of courage, exploration, and acceptance. I no longer feared judgment because I understood that the most important acceptance begins from within. I didn't need approval from anyone else, not from peers, not from society, because I had learned to approve of myself. Life continued, normal yet transformed. I still had my awkward moments, my doubts, and my fears, but they no longer defined me. Each step I took in the clothes that once terrified me reminded me of how far I had come and how much of myself I had uncovered. And in the quiet of my room, when I glanced in the mirror and caught my reflection, I didn't see someone playing dress-up or experimenting with identity. I saw a person whole, complex, and beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with clothes and everything to do with courage, honesty, and self-discovery. Mom's words echoed in my mind, a mantra I would carry forever. This is you. Not just the clothes, but the confidence, the presence, the person you're discovering. And finally, I understood them fully. Thanks for watching.